This is approximately the year 1865. It is regarding my grandparents, my children's great-grandparents. She was Roberta Strange, and she married my grandfather, who was Presley Strange Smithwick. Their courtship was rather interesting. She was the daughter of a riverboat captain and lived all kind of in a remote area of Memphis, out in the country. And her house was 2 stories. She could stand in it, and there was a long driveway. She could see the young people approaching in a buggy, young men coming to court her. And she told me this herself. She said she had 5 engagement rings at one time. And that was terrible. But anyway, she would see the young man coming down the road and put on the proper ring. Well, unfortunately, one time my grandfather came in, and unexpectedly, and she had on the wrong ring. So he just turned around and walked off, and this is my grandfather here in later years. But he turned around and walked off and never came to see her again. So she had to pursue him, and that's the way then they were married. And they had 5. My father was the third of 5 boys. They had 5 boys. My grandmother was very petite. She was not, probably 5.5 feet, a little over 5 feet. And my grandfather was well over 6 feet. But she ruled the roost with a husband and 5 boys. She was the queen of the household. And she was very dear to me. I just spent many, many hours with her. I had a lot of headaches growing up, and I remember so well lying on the sofa with my head in her lap, and she would massage my eyes and my head for hours until my headache would go away, in just a sweet, loving way. And she had arthritic fingers. They were bent and stiff, but she still gave me a beautiful rub on my headache. And this is my grandmother. I'll hold this up. In front of her house, picking roses. And here is another picture of her when she was at my cousin's debut. She is sitting here in that, and she wore long dresses, very petite lady, always wore a long watch or something hanging from her neck, and her hair was piled up on her head. And I realize now she must have dyed her hair a little bit because it was brown. It was never gray. So I guess she must have touched it up, whatever they did. And then my father, and he had not met Mother, but he had escorted some of her cousins that lived in the same household. He had escorted them to parties, and he would call the house and very often speak with Mother on the phone. And he told some of his friends that he didn't want to meet Mother until he had made enough money to propose marriage, because he intended to marry her. He had only spoken with her on the phone and knew about her and probably seen her on the street, but they had never formally been introduced, yet he had told his friends he was going to marry her. And so when they did start courting, Mother was quite popular, and she had lots of beaux, as they called them, and she became ill. She had just almost a breakdown from living in Mexico, and the poverty there distressed her so. And it was hard for her. So she became rather ill, and her aunt was going to take her abroad. So she took her abroad to get better, and my father followed them over on the next ship to Italy. And there he proposed to her again. She accepted. And he turned around and got on the next ship and went right back to work. And Mother was disappointed because she and Aunt Eel thought he would stay there and escort them to the opera and other things. But no, he went right back home to work. Once he came over to get her acceptance, he achieved it, and he turned around and went back. And he grew up in the bank in which his father was president. His father had started out as just a runner boy and worked his way up to president and chairman of the board of the First National Bank of Memphis. And so he worked there himself, just in the small job in the bank. But in handling the papers in the bank, he saw that the money was being made in Memphis at that time. It was made by the cotton brokers, not by the bankers, not by the store owners, not by lawyers and physicians, but by the cotton brokers. So both he and all of his brothers left the bank and went into the cotton business. And my father made his first $1 million before he was 30 years old. And that's what he said he wanted to do, and married Mama. So, should we stop there?
Good. Thank you.